Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. My name is Tom.
Hi, I'm Stephanie. This is our literature unit, guys, as you know. We're talking about the novel Tuck, Everlasting. We are talking about kind of an interesting idea of whether you want to live forever here on earth, be immortal here on earth, not in heaven where everything's great, but on earth where there's still people around you and there's sickness and war and things like that. If you had the chance to perhaps drink some special magical water and live forever, would you do it? We're talking about two families, as you know. We've got the Fosters. Winnie Foster is our protagonist. She's our lead character in this story. And she is 10 years old when the story starts. And it's a story that's set in the 1880s. It goes way back in time. So anyway, she runs away. She goes into the woods. And she runs into Jesse Tuck and Jesse's family, May, the mother, his older brother, Miles. And she sees them drinking this water from a spring. She's thirsty, wants a drink, and they say no. And instead, they kidnap her, put her on the horse, and they ride off into the woods to their home. Now, we've also got another character, Tom. Who's this guy in the yellow suit?
Yeah, we don't quite know. He came to their house earlier asking about a strange family. The Fosters didn't know what he was talking about. And after Winnie got kidnapped, they were galloping through the woods. And then she saw this guy in the yellow suit, but she was too scared to call out to him for him to help her. Later on, the Tuck family, or the Tucks family, I should say, explained to her that, hey, a long time ago we drank water from that spring and we've been living forever since then. We haven't aged a day. The water granted us eternal life. And they even had accidents that would kill them, but they survived. And because their neighbors and friends suspected or were suspicious that they had made a pact with the devil, they stayed away from them. And now the Tucks live in an isolated and friendless nightmare. So I suppose maybe living forever isn't such a good thing after all. Okay, let's continue to summarize what's happening in our story, all about morality and immortality in the book Tuck, Everlasting. Let's listen. Angus Tuck, the patriarch, warns Winnie that no one must ever discover the spring. If they did, they'd exploit it and sell the water to those who would embrace eternal life. The consequences for humanity would be a disaster, as this would disturb the essential and natural life cycle. Little do the Tucks know that the man in the yellow suit follows them home. He steals their horse, rides back to Tree Gap, and proposes an arrangement. He'll lead the authorities to Winnie in exchange for the Fosters' woods. The Fosters reluctantly consent. The man arrives at the Tucks' home before the police do. He announces his intention to sell the water at patent medicine shows. He'll hire the Tucks as performers in public stage demonstrations, where he'll make them prove their inability to die. When they refuse, he threatens to force Winnie to drink the water. Horrified, May hits the man with a rifle, rendering him unconscious. He later dies, and Angus envies the man's death. May is found guilty of murder and jailed. She'll be publicly executed, exposing the Tucks' secret. Winnie and the other Tucks help May escape jail. Before they leave Tree Gap, Jesse gives Winnie a bottle of spring water. He suggests drinking it when she turns 17 and joining them. Weeks later, Winnie sees the toad again. She pours the spring water on it to defend it from a vicious dog. 70 years pass. The Tucks return to Tree Gap. They locate Winnie's grave, which says she was a beloved wife and mother, dying at 78. As they reflect on the happy life Winnie likely had, they see her immortal toad hopping along.
Okay, guys, we've got a new character here in day 2, Angus Tuck. Now, Angus Tuck happens to be the dad. They're calling him the patriarch. He's actually married to May. So he appears for the first time. If you're a patriarch, you're kind of the head of the household. You're the oldest male figure. And he warns Winnie that no one must ever discover the spring. If they did, they'd exploit it. If you exploit something, you take advantage of it. They would take advantage and sell the water to those who would embrace eternal life. We know for a fact that there are lots of people out there that want eternal life, that will do anything for eternal life. Actually, a lot of our celebrities are into that. So, yeah, he doesn't want anyone to find out about it. The consequences, the results for humanity would be a disaster. Humanity just refers to all of us. So, if people were to get their hands on this spring water that gave them eternal life, it would be a mess. So humanity just refers to all of us, the human race. And it would be a disaster. Why? Why would it be a disaster, Tom?
Well, it would disturb the essential and natural life cycle. So, of course, the world operates because people and living things live and die, and then we get replacements and things like that. If everybody could live forever, there'd probably be massive overpopulation. We'd run out of food, and that would be a big disaster. And yes, we need to have this essential, important, natural life cycle maintained. Yes, in order to continue having the world as a healthy place, people gotta live and they gotta die too. So if you talk about disturbing something, that means you bother something and you make it behave in a way that it didn't want to in the first place. Now, of course, if you've got a big test coming along and you're studying at home in your room and the neighbors downstairs decide to have a big party and sing karaoke, well, that's going to disturb you. You're not going to be able to concentrate on your studies. You may pound on the floor to get them to stop, but of course, they're going to ignore you.
They probably will. So moving on to the second paragraph, it says, little do the Tucks know. Sometimes we use that phrase, little did someone know, or little do someone know, to suggest that there's something happening that no one, the other people in this story are unaware of, but they should know, because this person's probably going to cause problems or cause trouble later. Little do they know. That man in the weird yellow suit, he happens to follow them home. Remember, they pass him by while they're kidnapping Winnie and they're on the horse. So he steals their horse. So he follows them home, steals their horse, rides back to Tree Gap, where the Fosters live, of course, and he visits them and he proposes or suggests an arrangement. He's kind of a bad dude. He said, here's the deal. I'll lead the authorities or the police to Winnie in exchange for ownership of the woods. He wants the whole woods area to belong to him, just because he's able to give the authorities some information. Well, of course, the Fosters don't want to give up the woods, but it's Winnie, and they love Winnie, so they reluctantly consent. If you do something reluctantly, guys, you really don't want to do it. You kind of hesitate, you're unwilling, but you have to. Yeah, I reluctantly agreed to work Friday night, even though I'd rather go out with my friends and just play, right? Reluctantly. Consent means you agree to do something or you give permission for something to happen. Here it just means they agree to this proposal that the man in the yellow suit has made.
Right, so this is kind of blackmail here. The man in the yellow suit is saying, well, I'll tell you where your daughter is if you give me your woods that you own. And they probably have no choice but to consent or to agree to this agreement. Okay, so again, reluctantly means they didn't really want to, but they had no choice. They reluctantly conceded or consented to this arrangement. Now, the man, the guy in the yellow suit, arrives at the Tuck's home before the police do. So maybe he's got some magic power or something. He's able to travel to their home before the police can get there. Remember, this took place a long time ago. The police probably had to ride on horses or something, and they were quite slow. And the man in the yellow suit announces his intention to sell the water at patent medicine shows. You may not know this, but I guess during the 1800s in the United States, there were these medicine shows put on by basic, what do you call them? Scammers?
Traveling salesmen, yeah.
Exactly. They were just, they were going from town to town selling these magic potions. If you take this potion, it will cure you of your zits.
That's how Coca-Cola started business, though, remember? It was first sold by one of these traveling salesmen as a tonic that would cure some illness you had. And now we drink it as a soft drink. So there you go.
Right, so they're going to sell this water to people in different towns and they'll buy it. It'll actually work in this particular case. Most of the time, the medicine they sold at these patent medicine shows were nothing but water with sugar or molasses mixed in. And by the time people figured out that it didn't work, those people were long gone in the next state or whatever. And again, we're talking about the man in the yellow suit. This is what he's going to do. He wants to sell the water at those medicine shows. He'll hire the Tucks as performers in public stage demonstrations where he'll make them prove their inability to die. So he wants to prove to the people, his potential customers, that this medicine or this water actually works. So he's going to have a demonstration. That means you show something to someone to tell them how something operates. You see these demonstrations all the time in stores where they tell you how this window washer works. First you put the water on, then you clean it with soap and stuff. That's a demonstration. And in this particular case, maybe he'll stab them 20 times with a knife, but they'll still survive. Or he'll shoot them with an AK-47 100 times and they'll still survive. So that's a demonstration that this water actually works. It guarantees immortality.
Yeah, that's his deal to them. We're going to continue, guys, but right now we're going to take a quick break, listen to our Chinese teacher, and then we'll be back.
听众朋友大家好，我是安娜。我们昨天开始带大家看一本小说，叫做《永远的狄家》Tuck Everlasting。因为这一家人都不会死They are immortal。可是这到底是好事还是坏事呢？好，我们故事昨天说到有一个正常人叫做 Winnie 被 Tuck 一家人掳走了，因为 Winnie 知道了泉水会给人永生这一件秘密。好，那么之后呢，到底故事怎么发展？我们赶快来看一下第一段。当这一个 Tuck 一家人把 Winnie 掳回家之后一家之主Angus Tuck， 我们来看到又出现了另外一个 character， 另外一个角色。Tuck 的父亲呢，这个一家之主警告 Winnie 绝对不能够让任何人发现这个泉水，因为如果正常人发现之后呢，一定会把这个泉水卖给想要接受永生的人。但是这不行因为这会干扰整个自然的生命周期，这个 life cycle。好，在第一段当中有很重要的所谓英文当中假设语气。假设语气到底是什么其实它就是对事实相反陈述当中动词必须要做的变化。例如在第一段第二句，我们在描述故事本来先用现在式，但是在第二句当中看到的是与现在事实相反的陈述。那既然与现在事实相反，在英文当中动词都用过去式，所以我们看到的如果 if 后面的动作用的是过去式 if they did， 这里的 did 当然指的就是上面的那个发现泉水这件事情 discover 这个动作。如果人真的发现泉水的话，他们就会滥用泉水，然后卖给想要接受永生的人。所以逗点之后 they 的一撇 d 很重要，这个一撇 d 是 would， 就是将会如何如何的助动词。可是将会做某事是不成立的，因为大家都没有发现，所以它还是一个与事实相反的陈述，就不能用 will will 的过去式叫做 would。 所以我们看到这句话叫做假设语气，其实它真正要表达的是 do 这个动作跟 will 这个动作都不能用现在式，要用过去，表示与事实相反。好，那么这个假设语气我们了解了之后呢，就可以证明了至少到目前为止只有 Winnie 跟 Tuck 一家人知道泉水的这个秘密。那后来呢，还有很重要的一个时间关键点，就是说当 Winnie 被 Tuck 一家人掳走的时候，其实 Tuck 家族不知道那个穿黄色西装的男子也跟着他们一起回家在第二段的第一句特别小心这里是一个 倒装句。那个倒装句呢，请把 little 这边特别的把它圈起来，因为 little 在英文当中啊，它被视为是一个否定字。这个否定字就是很少很少，少到几乎没有。否定字如果放在句首，那么句子就会形成倒装。倒装的意思就是看起来好像疑问句耶，原本句子的 no 是动词，那 no 如果要形成像疑问句一般，就只能借助动词啦。所以我们看到的是 Little do the Tucks know， 后面的 that 到句尾是 know，知道的受词，所以这句话如果不倒装，本来应该主词就是 the Tucks know little that， 再到句尾，那现在就形成了倒装，是因为 little 是否定字的关系。那么这个穿黄色西装的男子跟着他回去怎样呢？其实穿黄色西装男子偷了他们的马，然后骑回 Winnie 的家，告诉他家人说，我知道你女儿在哪哦，提出一个协议，而且呢，他还说他要带领相关单位去找 Winnie， 可以，但是有一个条件，就是 Foster 他们家的树林要交给他。那 Foster 为了要找到自己女儿，就心不甘情不愿的，只好同意了。不过呢，这名穿黄色西装的男子居然在警察到达之前就先到 Tuck 家，而且还说他要在专利的药品展当中啊，贩卖这种可以让大家永生的水的这种意图。他会聘请 Tuck 家族作为表演者参加公开舞台的展示，让 Tuck 一家人证明自己没有办法死。我们看一下第二段第三句，在这句话当中有个限定用法关系子句，但是小心哦，这里的限定用法关系子句的关复。好，我们先把第二段第三句的先行词找出来，在大概中间的地方 public stage demonstrations 就是公开的一种展示， where 到句尾可以左右括号，而 where 指的是在前面先行词这个地点，也就是说 where 等于的是 and in the public stage demonstrations.
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back, guys. We're on day 2, and this is part of the plot. When we started, we were introduced to a new character, Angus Tuck. He's the patriarch, the father in this family. He's married to May, and he warns Winnie that no one must ever discover the spring. If they did, they would exploit it, take advantage of it, and sell the water to those who would embrace or seek for eternal life. There are lots of people out there like that. And the consequences for humanity or the human race would be a disaster. It would just mess up or disturb the essential and natural life cycle that we all go through. Well, little do the Tucks know that the man in the yellow suit, he follows them home. So he steals their horse, he rides back to the Fosters in Tree Gap, and he says, hey, I'll lead you and the authorities to Winnie, your daughter, in exchange for the woods. I want to own it. And the Fosters feel like they have no choice. That's their daughter, so they reluctantly consent.
Exactly, and then the man is not finished. He's going to blackmail the Tucks. So he goes back to the Tucks' home, and the police are not there yet. And he tells them, I'm going to sell the water at these patent medicine shows. You know, I own the woods now, so the water is mine. I can sell it now. And I'll hire you guys as performers in my demonstrations so that the people will believe that this water can give them eternal life. Then I'll sell it. I'll make a fortune. And yes, their demonstrations will prove to those people that they can't die. But, the Tucks, I guess they got their morals and they refuse to this deal. They refuse to accept this deal or this arrangement. They turn him down, basically. And, of course, he's got the power here, so he threatens to force Winnie to drink the water. If you don't agree, I will force your daughter to drink the water.
Well, it's Winnie, the little 10-year-old, the foster girl.
Yep, yeah, exactly.
So at this point, May is horrified. That's the mother of the Tucks. She hits the man with a rifle, a gun, and it renders him unconscious. If you render someone unconscious, you just make them unconscious to render. It's kind of an interesting word to use. We use it when we're saying that it's giving some sort of action. It's causing some sort of action to happen to render someone unconscious. You'll often see it with that word unconscious. It rendered him unconscious. So
render is also used in computer language when you have some kind of image and you're going to add color to it and make it three-dimensional. It takes a while for the computer to do this, and you'll often see a message on the screen, rendering.
Video will do that, yeah. Yeah, I often will. You have to wait forever while it renders. But here it just means it's a formal word, guys, but it's causing this action to happen. So they rendered him unconscious. Good on May for hitting the guy. He's a creep. Now, he later dies, and Angus envies the man's death. He really wishes that he could have died. Remember, they're all immortal. They can't die. May is found guilty of murder and jailed. So the police show up. They see the guy that she's hit. She'll be publicly executed. That's what happens if you commit murder. Now, if you're publicly executed, that's no big deal for most people. But for May, it wouldn't kill her because she's immortal. So that would expose or reveal the Tuck's secret. So Winnie and the other Tucks help May escape jail. And what they do is, or Winnie substitutes herself for May. So she's in the prison when the next day, arrives and it's time for her to be executed. They discover, oh, that's not May. That's a little girl. So that's what happens. But before they leave Tree Gap, Jessie, though, the Tucks have to leave. They have to escape and get away. Jessie gives Winnie a bottle of spring water.
So they got her out of jail, and then Jessie offered the girl Winnie a bottle of spring water, but he suggests drinking it when she turns 17 and joining them. This is kind of a young love story here. Jessie probably has a crush on Winnie. Winnie, I get these names
Well, Winnie has a crush on Jessie. Jessie's lonely. He's been age 17 forever. And he just wants a companion. May has Angus. They're married. So, yeah, you can kind of understand this. So, he does give her a little bottle, but he says, don't drink it until you're 17. It's not like he can marry someone who's 10 years old. That's creepy.
Well, he suggests that she drink it when she turns 17. She doesn't have to. But weeks later, she sees that toad again.
Right.
And the toad is about to be attacked by a vicious dog. If you're vicious, that means you're mean and you're violent, and the dog is going to attack the toad and probably kill it, and she feels sorry for the toad, so she pours the spring water on the toad to defend it. So if the toad is immortal, if it lives forever, then the dog cannot harm it in any way.
Oh, well, then we're going to go to the final paragraph. So at this point, guys, just to catch you up, the Tucks have left town, right? They left town, but before they left town, the Jessie Tuck gives Winnie a bottle of spring water and says, hey, when you turn 17, you might want to drink this and come join me. We can live forever, eternally, together forever. And then they take off. Now, weeks later, before we move to the final paragraph, again, Tom talked about this. Winnie sees that toad again. Remember, I said it would come back to be important. She pours the spring water on it because a vicious dog has decided to attack the toad. She's just trying to defend her little toad friend. So my question to Tom, and maybe if you read the book, you can find this out. Did she intentionally get rid of the spring water? Had she made the decision at that point that she would never drink it? Or did she just need to use some water at that point to defend the toad.
Or it could have been some kind of symbolic gesture to the toad because she told the toad that she wanted to escape the family, so maybe there's some significance to that. But in any case, she did pour the water on the toad.
And it's gone. Yeah.
And I'm also wondering how much water there was in the bottle. Maybe if she poured just a little bit on the toad, that would be enough. But unfortunately, she poured all the water on the toad, so she left none for herself. And next, 70 years pass by. We go 70 years into the future. And the Tucks return to Tree Gap. They've been living away for a while. And they look around. Where's Winnie? Well, they find her grave in a cemetery. And the tombstone says she was a beloved wife and mother, dying at the age of 78.
Cool. So she had a normal life. It says here, as they reflect on the happy life Winnie likely had, they see her immortal toad hopping along. If you reflect on something, we use this word to talk about thinking deeply about something, and usually something that's already happened in the past. You reflect on choices you made in the past, or you reflect on, the decisions you made, whatever. You think deeply about it. Now, they reflected on the happy life Winnie likely had. They don't know for sure, but it looks like she had kids. She was a wife, a mother. How wonderful. And then they see that little toad. We're describing the toad as being immortal. So that water that Winnie poured on the toad actually made that toad immortal. If you're immortal, you live forever.
And immoral, of course, is a similar word, which means you have no morals, you're a bad person, you don't know right from wrong. But again, here, immortal means you live forever.
Has a T in it. Be careful with that one.
Immortal, right. Yeah. Okay, that brings us to the end of our explanation for today. Let's turn things now to our Chinese teacher, whom we wish could live forever.
那 Tuck 一家人当然会拒绝啊，可是当 Tuck 一家人拒绝的时候，那位男子啊，居然威胁要强迫 Winnie 喝下泉水，所以 Jessie 他妈妈 May 他就吓坏了，就用步枪去攻击那个穿黄色西装的人，居然让他失去意识，后来还死掉了。我们来看一下第3段，在第5句当中又出现分词构句了。大家根据文意来推断，前面的 horrified 应该是省略了连接词的因果关系的这个因，因为 May 被吓坏，所以 May 才攻击他。Because May is horrified， 把 because 删掉 ，is 变成 being， 在简化当中 being 又被删掉，而 May 就是逗点之后的主词，所以只剩下这个形容词。不过这句话呢，还有另外一个连接词省略的分词构句哦，在逗点之后的 rendering 本来应该是 and renders him unconscious， 所以这句话可以特别画起来，它有包含2个子句的简化。那当然 May 后来就被判了杀人罪啊，还关进监狱，当然就会被公开处决，可是这就会暴露出 Tuck 一家人的秘密。那当然 Winnie 后来居然还帮助他们逃狱耶。在几周之后呢， Winnie 又再次看到那一只蟾蜍，那一只 toad， 后来他就把Jessie 给他的一瓶泉水倒在蟾蜍的身上，保护他免于受到恶犬的侵害。后来过了70年 Tuck 一家人又回到了 Tree Gap 这个地方，他们找到了 Winnie 的坟墓，上面写着她是一个妻子跟母亲，78岁的时候离世了。我们明天会针对这个故事的 theme 主题做更多的探讨哦。我们明天见，我是安娜，拜拜。
That's all for today, everybody. Thanks for joining us, but please join us again next time when we actually talk about the author of our featured work of literature, Natalie Babbitt, and we'll talk about her in our next program, as I said. So from all of us here at English Digest, my name is Tom.
I'm Stephanie. See you later.
Farewell.